In the meantime, let's sing.
Because of my brothers and friends, because of my sisters and friends,
There we go.
please let me ask, please let me say, peace to you. Because of my brothers and friends, because of my sisters and friends, please let me ask, please let me say, peace to you. This is the house of the one I wish the best for you. This is the house of the one I wish the best for you. Because of my brothers and friends, because of my sisters and friends, please let me ask, please let me say, peace to you. This is the house of the one I wish the best for you. This is the house of the one I wish the best for you. Because of my brothers and friends, because of my sisters and friends, please let me ask, please let me say, peace to you.
It actually led me to consider what would happen if, in fact, there was only one slide.
There's only one slide to have, that's
Is that one of the, what?
If there's only one slide to have, which one would it be?
It was kind of stuck on this one. So I think it needs to be read. It is so odd to be a human being. We are an expression of universal being caught in an adventure of separateness. So often our separateness compels us to act in self-interest, ultimately bringing pain to ourselves and to others. Sometimes our separateness leads us to the belief that we are truly separate, that all creation is fragmented, broken, at odds with itself. Then we abuse, we act cruelly, we cause pain intentionally, we seek power to protect us from the fragility of our fragmentation. These days of awe present us with a central challenge, to truly see where we are, to awaken to what we are, and to remember who we are. This, of course, means we've got to sing Brothers. No, I guess not. The challenge is to begin each day with thank you. I don't know what thoughts greet you in the morning. I don't know what station your alarm is set to, if you wake up to a radio. I don't know what newscast you look at, and find all kinds of reasons why it's so challenging to be able to wake up and go thank you. It's like sometimes there's pain and there's anguish, and we think how difficult it is to do thank you for this. And then we go, these are the opportunities, to step into consciousness. What is here to be met? And reminding ourselves that the act of pushing away and the act of resisting is how we get stuck. And the unstuck is, thank you. And even thank you to the mind that doesn't want it that way. Even thank you to the memory. Even thank you to the fears of what's to come. Just thank you so we can cut ourselves loose from the entrapment. So we share these words of gratitude for being exactly where we are. Might as well be we're here. For being with exactly the people we're with. Might as well, because we're here. For doing exactly what we're doing. And for being exactly the one we are. So last night I was sharing that for me this year, the Day of Atonement is also a day of attunement and a day of atonement, a day of tone, and a day of at one-ment, and of course a day of atonement. And I mentioned something about holding a tone. And what would it be if we just communicated with each other with a tone? And what tone would you share? So I'm going to actually invite you to share your tone. I'll have each one of you stand up. Just kidding. No, I'd like to encourage us to find our tone and see what would it be like if we just set our tone into this space. It might be a high tone, might be a low tone, might be a medium tone, might be a loud tone, might be a soft tone. Can you find your tone?
Do we want to do it all in the same vowel, though?
All at the same what?
All the same vowel?
You're really... I mean, how many times do we have to go over this?
Until we get it.
But that's a good thing. That's a valid thing. I would just do the same tone that we started with last night of an ah. Same vowel. On second thought, your vowel might be O, or it might be E, or it might be A. It could be any of the vowels. It might be oi, a diphthong, the Jewish diphthong. It might be ow. It might be wow. Are you willing? Okay, please take a breath for your tone. That was awesome. My impression was that we kind of started off with all different kinds of things that kind of were not in sync, and then as it went on, there was a kind of harmony that happened. I wonder if that's natural. You know, if we get out of trying, if we get out of thinking, and just put our energies out there, whether it's just a natural thing for a harmony to come into being when we're not trying. Whether the truth of the matter is that we not only are connected, but at a very deep level, we seek the very best for each other. And we know that when we're able to support the best in another, the best in us is supported. And it's natural. It's just natural. You already know that my favorite blessing is the Shehechianu. And I say it often because everything changes. Every moment is an opportunity for Shehechianu. Traditionally, this blessing is said when we are doing something for the first time. So if you eat a fruit for the very first time in a season, or in the fall, squash for the very first time in a season, you would say, in addition to the blessing for that, you would say Shehechianu. Do something for the first time, Shehechianu. And the reality is we're always doing something for the first time. It's just a habit of our mind that has us think that something else is going on, that things are staying the same. It's never the same. It's always another precious opportunity to go, oh, this. So please join me. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, shehechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Blessed are you, Holy One of Being, universal creative presence, who holds us in life always, who supports our unique unfolding, and who brings us to this moment for blessing.
No, don't do it in that key. That won't work very well. I'm sorry. That worked better.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, shehechianu v'kiyamanu, v'higianu lazman hazeh.
You know, traditionally, if you say a blessing, you don't say amen. If you hear a blessing, you say amen. Part of the reason for that is that if you hear a blessing and you say amen, it counts as if you've said the blessing too. You know, there's a tradition where we are obligated to say 100 blessings a day. And a blessing is essentially awareness of connection, an awareness of wow, an awareness of yes, an awareness of good. So it may or may not have a traditional form, but it's like if you hear anybody else you're with go, wow, yes, good, and you go, amen, it's as if you did it. And it's an interesting practice to see if we can either amen or bless a moment 100 times in a day. The traditional prayer book in Orthodoxy actually has 100 blessings if you go through all the services. And I always felt that was making it too easy, because it doesn't require us to stay awake as we walk through our day, to stay awake to the yesness that is seeking to be appreciated, the nowness. Oh, what I was going to say was, when we do say a blessing and we say amen, we are saying amen because we might have actually been listening to the blessing as we recite it, which actually is not so weird for me, because there's a lot of times I'm actually not listening. You know, it's very hard to get out of just doing things by rote. So to really be listening allows us to amen ourselves. That was good. Please join me. A universe without and a universe within. It is our consciousness that bridges the inner and the outer worlds. The nature of that link reflects the ways in which we meet our worlds. And what is closest to us is simply mystery. Behind all words, behind all worlds, the life that can ever be. We dwell in the wonder of spirit, and that spirit speaks as well from the depths of our own beings. On this journey, we are not alone in our questing for the one we are. That one speaks through each sensation, each memory, each dream, and whispers through each relationship. We seek to open to the one we share. We yearn to know the one who calls through each meeting of I and thou. From the depths of each soul, the spark shines forth, yearning to be received. One spark, awakening wherever life opens its eye. Through each of us, there is that which seeks expression. Through our highest acts, our clearest thoughts, we celebrate that one. When we truly awaken to the life we share, we meet the one yearning to express through us. We meet that one through acts of loving kindness in our world. Meet that one through embracing all aspects of our own being. We meet that one when we truly meet each other. The world we see is so filled with conflict. Is it the turmoil in an outer world that creates the difficulties in our own lives? Or is the outer world simply reflecting difficulties we are already having inside ourselves? Perhaps both are true. There is struggle inside as well as outside. To think that we can heal one without healing the other is naive. Where do we start? We can only begin from where we are right now. There is healing to be done right here. From our past come echoes that speak a way of blessing. We are challenged to open our awareness to an ancient calling, to remember that which is always blessing. And please rise. Together, Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamvorach, bless with the eternal presence, the one who is blessing. Baruch Adonai Hamvorach le'olam va'ed. Blessed is the eternal presence, the one who is blessing eternally. We seek to meet the one in whom all else is. We seek again the fullness we have touched before. We would reach beyond the ordinary and welcome the embrace of a universe. There are words reaching out to us through time and space, words that challenge us to remember the one we are, words to carry in the mind, words to hold within the heart, words to breathe and words to walk, words to share through acts of love. There are words with which we call to the self hiding behind the pretense and unconsciousness of our days, a call to awaken as the one we are. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Listen, Israel. The eternal awakens within us as our God. The eternal is one. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Blessed is the holy name, whose glorious being is eternal.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai
Please be seated. You know why we do the Baruch Shem after the Shema? No? Well, okay. So there was a time in our history when we were not allowed to publicly read from Torah. And the Shema, of course, is a verse from Torah. It's a verse that appears in Deuteronomy. And it was punishable by death if the ruling religion of the time found us reciting Torah aloud, teaching Torah. So it had to be hidden. So what we did was we replaced some of the Torah verses that normally would be part of the service with non-Torah verses that reminded us. You know, they were like placeholders. So instead of, when we couldn't say the Shema, we put Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto La'olam Va'ed. And then when tide changed and we were free to recite words of Torah and to teach words of Torah, in typical Jewish fashion, we kept both. It's the same thing we did, you know, each Torah reading of the week has a Haftarah, has an additional reading that's taken from the book of prophets, mostly, and that too came about in the same way. There's a Torah portion that's assigned to every week. When we weren't allowed to openly study and teach Torah, we instead went to other books and took passages that reminded us of the Torah portion. And then when it became okay to recite the Torah portions themselves, we kept the Haftarah. It's one of the ways the prayer book gets so big. It's like the traditional prayer book is starting from some seed thoughts, and then people respond to those seed thoughts, and people like those responses, and they put them on slides, and they put them obviously on paper, and pretty soon the response that people liked was recited along with the seed thought. And then there were more responses and more responses and more responses. And one of the motivations for me at a certain point was, I think we've lost the seed thoughts. You know, we've gotten so caught up in responses and words and words and words and words that where are the seeds? And mostly what we share on these slides are the seeds. The Shema is a seed. It's like, what started the thing? You know what, the earliest prayer texts, and this is still in the days of the Second Temple, so this is in the 2nd and 1st centuries before the Common Era, there were two central prayer texts, and one was the Shema, and the other was a recitation of what gets called the Ten Commandments. And it was an interesting decision on the part of the early rabbis to outlaw that as sufficient. They were afraid that should people simply do those, everything else would be lost. And in order to make sure that the rest of the tradition was maintained, they outlawed reciting those. So sometimes if you look at a traditional prayer book, you'll find the Shema and the Ten Commandments at the end somewhere, but it's no longer a part of the Ten Commandments reading is not a part anymore of the daily worship. And their decision and their choice probably accurately preserved ancient material. However, it also hid the seeds. It also hid the support for a more direct opening, a more direct remembering. So I think we need both. I think sometimes we need just to do the Shema. That's a whole service. And sometimes we need to add more words. And it's like that in our lives as well, is it not? Like sometimes we need to find the basics and we need to find the seed thoughts in our relationships, in our work, in just our being in the world. Like what's the seed? What's the essence? Because we share so many words and so much discussion. And it's good. But it's also good to remember the seeds. It's also good to remember where's the line, and to honor that. In the morning service, we like to do the entire V'ahavta. These are the words that immediately follow the Shema in the book of Deuteronomy. The pattern in the worship is bless it all, the Baruch. From blessing it all awakens naturally the awareness of one, the Shema. And from the awareness of one comes naturally the capacity to love. So we share it with the trope, with the traditional Torah melody with which a Torah text is chanted. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha b'hayu advarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'beitecha uv'lechtecha b'derech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha uv'shartam le'od al yadecha v'hayu l'totafot b'neinecha Uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha laman tizkaru vasitem et kol mitzvotai vitem kedoshim lelohechem ani Adonai Elohechem Asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem le'elohim ani Adonai Elohechem. That you might remember and do all my commandments and be holy unto your God. I am the Holy One, your God, the one who brought you forth from the place of enslavement, to be for you God. I am the Eternal One who is your God. I mentioned last night that I was thinking about worship and I was talking about prayer. Actually, I was thinking about worship and prayer. And last night I talked a little bit about worship and I wanted to talk about prayer. Because worship is kind of like this opening to the wonder, the awe of a moment. Seeing the absolute beauty around us. Seeing the absolute everything around us. And prayer, prayer is one of the least understood aspects. If I were God and people were praying for things like, hey God, listen, I really need whatever that is, whether I need healing, whether I need money, whether I need relationship, whether I need, whatever it is, I would say, why are you telling me what you need? I know that already. I mean, like any decent God does not go, gee, I wonder what you need. So it's hard to kind of get what that's about. We could tell ourselves what we need. We could remind ourselves what we need, what's important. I don't think God needs to know. And the weird thing about, for me, the weird thing about consciousness is that consciousness is always flowing, and it's always ready to flow into whatever container we put it in. Sometimes the container is kind of compelled by experiences in the outer world, experiences in the body, happenings in the world, happenings inside the body, that just take all of our attention, and that's where consciousness goes. But consciousness is the most important energy that there is. After all, there isn't nothing that exists outside of consciousness. Consciousness holds it all. So it gets to a point where we become aware that what we hold in consciousness makes a difference. What we believe, what we perceive, what we decide makes a difference. So if what we're doing is praying, I need whatever, I need prosperity, consciousness will go, okay, you need prosperity. I mean, just automatically. Because what we're basically saying is, I don't have it. And consciousness goes, yeah. So it seems to me that prayer is an invitation to step into the being and the world we want. It's a tremendous responsibility. But it's ours. It's like in the space each of us occupies, there's no one else to do it. To say, I am praying for means I am stepping into. I am opening consciousness to that form or to that idea or to that reality. It's not opening to a how. It's opening to a what. And here's the kind of trick. Because there's a difference between conditions and being. Most of the time we put our consciousness into conditions. Conditions that we think will satisfy us, conditions that we think will make us happy, conditions that we want. But the mind and the part of ourselves that decides on the conditions is the ego. And after a while, one begins to see that conditions that the ego discerns to be answers will wind up leading us in the same place we started. Because ego actually wants change, but wants to want change and is resistant to change. Ego basically likes predictability, even if that predictability is painful. That's not a bad thing. The ego is trying to keep us safe. So from my point of view, the most effective prayer is to call into being through our consciousness the consequences of the conditions we want. Like if we want prosperity so that we can feel secure in the world, I mean, what would we want that for? So that we don't have to worry, let's say, about finances. Well, that's the prayer. That's what we want to put consciousness into. We want to put consciousness into the experience of feeling totally comfortable and confident in our finances. I might not know exactly how. I might not know exactly when. I might not know exactly where, but I want to offer the infinite pool of consciousness, the answer, the state of being that I want to step into. Let the universe find some of the conditions. Even if that doesn't make sense, nod your head as if it does. It seems to me this is really critical because our world, after all, is a manifestation of the forms in which consciousness has been held and consciousness is being held right now. And if we want the world to reflect anything other than it's reflecting right now, then each and every one of us has to take a greater responsibility for the flow of consciousness that we're offering it. We might not know how we'll get there. We might not know when or where, but we can celebrate having the consequence of our prayer. Which leads me to suspect that unless a prayer is answered in the moment of praying, it'll never get answered. Unless I'm willing to step into the being of that kind of fulfillment, or that kind of joy, or that kind of security, or that kind of love, or that kind of belonging, I'm not going to be able to get there because I'll be manipulating conditions in the outer world and trying to get there that way. But there's no there. So I think the opening of that which we seek is ah. Ah. Ah is the sound of awakening to the fulfillment, the being, the I am. I don't know what your I am is. Might be I am secure. It might be I am healthy. It might be I am confident. It might be I am loved. It might be I belong. It might be I'm not going to call on you, but I'm going to suggest that you find some of the states of being that you would wish to put into prayer. Some of your gifts for consciousness. Even though the rational mind might say, well, I can't feel that, or I can't be that, or I can't know that. So the ah is the that. Because when we know it, we go, ah, ah. It's not I have that. It's not I'm doing that. It's I am that. I am that. Ah. And the sound that brings the ah to manifestation in the earth is oh. It's the ah, oh. It's the ah, oh of shalom, What's fascinating in Hebrew is that, Hebrew's a verbal language, which means the root of all words are verbal roots. So a noun in the Hebrew language is made of a verb standing still. Latinated languages are kind of opposite. They're nominal languages, which means they're based in nouns, and action is a noun moving. It's a different. And one of the ways you make in Hebrew a verb into a noun is you add the sounds a-o, shalom, wholeness, peace, makom, place. It's just like, I actually didn't make this up. So I would like to encourage us to take a moment of prayer. And to find our whatever the is in this moment, it's a knowing, it's a being, it's an identity. The simplest way is to find what follows an I am statement. Not an I do and not an I have statement, but an I am. I am. I am peaceful. I am secure. I am loved. I am acceptable. I belong. I am joyful. I am healing. I am teaching. And with that, it's just an awareness saying, here's an opening to hold consciousness. Let consciousness just pour into your I am. It does it naturally. And we'll do 3 ahs. And with this just allow that I amness to flow into every cell and every level of your being. Please take a breath. Once more. And imagine your I am statement just opening up to allow an incredible flow of consciousness to fill it. A beautiful of I am. And I might not know how, and I might not know where, and I might not know exactly when. But by the virtue of opening consciousness celebrating this prayer, this state of being, this I amness. I allow it to connect to my world. I allow it to connect to the earth. I allow it to connect to the body. I allow it to connect to this. And I offer it a channel of oh, oh. So please take a breath for oh. It's a sound of creation. It's that primordial sound that's reflected in Sanskrit tradition as Aum, reflected in Jewish tradition as Shalom, Makom, Aum. There's still time. The gates are still open. At any moment, when you find your I am, no matter what else is happening here, no matter what else is happening in your world, breathe into it. And just internally hold it in awe. And then watch it dance itself into the world with oh. It's all about love.
Listen to the word of love within. Listen to the word of love within your heart. Love is the way to God.
awe of God dawns in the unfolding of the soul as life attains the consciousness to seek its source. There is awe in the awareness that our consciousness is the link between the inner and outer realities we experience, between ourselves and each other, between this world and all others, between past and future, memory and dream. We are here, seeking worlds with our awareness, linking worlds with our awareness, shaping worlds with our awareness, walking a path toward a common dream, to shape a world that truly speaks the peace that is its source. Peace is not only to be prayed for, but pursued as well. No heavenly hand can suddenly change our hearts and remove our inclinations to fear and to hate. We must recognize in ourselves the potentials for violence and destruction we witness in others. Only then can we understand that the price of human goodness is the possibility of human evil. To choose ways of peace is to cherish life more than the fears within us that lead us into conflict and pain. If we are truly to become co-workers with God in the unfolding of creation, we must examine ourselves deeply to experience both the joy and the pain, and to bear witness to love and peace more with our lives than with our words. To pray for peace is to dedicate our energies to its realization, and to be willing to share our struggles with those who choose to walk with us. Sim shalom tova uvracha, chen v'chesed v'rachamim, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael amecha. Borchenu avinu kulanu ke'echad b'or panecha. Grant us peace, eternal source of peace, that we might realize the blessings of love and mercy, goodness and beauty, which all humankind receives in your light. In that light we perceive the way called Torah, a way of love, righteousness, blessing, and mercy. May we all know the blessing of thy peace. There's a discrepancy between the English transliteration and the Hebrew, which a few of you may have noticed. The Hebrew says, Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael amecha, for us and for the whole household of Israel. The transliteration says, V'al kol yira'ei shemecha, all who are in awe of your name, all who open to awareness of the oneness. On the slide that should have been here, the Hebrew has been changed as well. There's a hidden camera that has noted which of you was reading from the Hebrew and which of you from the English, So those who were reading from the Hebrew, even though you were misled, you get extra points. The wonderful thing about working with slides rather than working with a printed text is that slides allow changes to be made, more easily. You can't reprint a whole thing when you discover an error. The terrible thing about slides is that it puts the error right out front. So I could come up with some reason that this is like this, but I have no idea what it might be. What is it to pray for peace? What is it to be peace? I used to begin worship by saying, I don't know how your week has been. I don't know how your year has been. But for me, it's like I'm living in one of the least peaceful times in my experience of our country and our world. Now I'm living in a time where our country is not living up to its promises, to its commitments. Things are being done in our names, which we seem to have no control over. And to say that we can step into the consciousness of peace at such a time is really a challenge. And I don't even care what side of the divide one is on. Neither side is very peaceful. Neither side is very loving. It's hard even to know what peace would look like. But we know what peace would feel like. We know that there would be a deep opening of security, safety, like to know we could be in a sanctuary or in a theater or in a line and trust that there aren't energies that are waiting to hurt us or waiting to make a violent statement or involved in some car chase. So we can't avoid our responsibility for holding consciousness in an awareness and an awakening of peace. We may not see it outside right now. Our mind may not be able to find it. But nevertheless, it's possible to have a consciousness of peace. Because to pray for peace is not to imagine someone else is going to provide it. It's to step into it. This is one of my favorite melodies of Sim Shalom. Sim Shalom, Sim Shalom, Sim Shalom, Tova Uvracha, Chen v'chesed v'rachamim, Aleinu ve'al kol yira'ei shemecha. Sim Shalom, Sim Shalom, Sim Shalom, Tova Uvracha. I love passages that have a bunch of different melodies you could sing it with, because it's just reflective of the different beings through whom something can awaken. Like the peace can awaken in each and every one of us according to the melodies of our nature. And there's no, oh, this is the right melody. There's, oh, this is my favorite melody. And sometimes we can hear a melody that someone else is singing and we go, I'd like to sing that melody for a while. And sometimes a melody just so grabs us that we all want to sing that melody. And I suppose that's what Nusach is about, the particular melodic phrase of a holy day, a or of a holiday or of a Shabbat. Here's a melody that we can all sing together. One of the special moments of Yom Kippur is the moment of the priestly blessing, Birkat Kohanim. I don't know how many of you grew up in more traditional environments where during Yom Kippur, the Kohanim, that is to say, people who count themselves as descendants of the priestly family, the people of Aaron, family of Aaron, originally. Kohen is the Hebrew word for priest. Male, Kohenet, for a woman. A lot of times people identify as Kohen if their last name is Cohen or Khan or Cain. I think some years ago people were talking about having, some kind of blood test or saliva test that would identify authentic Kohanim. At any rate, those who identify as Kohanim would come before the congregation, and all the rest of us were told not to look. Now, particularly if you're a kid standing there and somebody tells you, it's like, don't touch the wet paint. I mean, you can't. And they would take their large talits and just kind of either cover themselves, and they would raise their hands with the Vulcan sign, live long and prosper. You know where that came from. And they would pronounce the benediction. It's an interesting benediction that we are going to share in a few moments. Because the reality is that priest lives within each and every one of us. Priest is part of an identity. And it's not that someone else is that. It's that each and every one of us has a priestly part, a part that is able to convey blessing. It is the only mitzvah, the only commandment in our tradition that has an additional requirement that those conveying this particular blessing need to love those they are blessing. That is really amazing. Because the love itself is the blessing. And the words, when spoken through that energy, when it's a gift of a loving energy, are potent. The Torah itself, when it's talking about the priest giving this blessing, say this blessing puts the name of God on those who are blessed. Well, the name of God is I am. The blessing seeks to awaken those who are blessed to the essence of their being. And it just felt right to kind of introduce those energies with this passage. Kodesh Ladonai, recognizing that Torah is story, it's a narrative. And it's a narrative designed to convey something that is timeless. But of course, you can only convey it according to what's available in any particular time period. So one of the ways is the dress of the high priest. And there's a the high priest wears a certain hat, a mitre, and from the mitre on a purple string, a disc, a golden disc, hangs over what we would call the third eye. And the golden disc is inscribed with these words, Kodesh Ladonai, holy for the eternal, special for the eternal, unique for the eternal. It's like special. And the question is, are the letters inscribed so that the person looking sees them, Kodesh Ladonai, or is the disc imprinted so that the one inside sees Kodesh Ladonai? And of course, we don't have the purple thread and we don't have the gold disc, but we might imagine that what we call the third eye is that space where the essence shows through. That space where there is a deeper vibration and a deeper knowing. So that we can look at each and every being and see Kodesh Ladonai. So that we can know that it's imprinted on both sides. So that it's seen from the inside and seen from the outside. Kodesh Ladonai, each and every one of us, absolutely sacred, holy. OMG. And to convey the blessing, to convey the priestly benediction, that's what we need to see. That's what we need to see. Because when we see that through eyes of love. And please understand that the eyes of love are not only these eyes, but the eyes of love, the identity of love. When Stephen was making this song, we were all there, and in little ways we contributed to it. So it's kind of a special song to me. Kodesh Ladonai. So I'd like to invite the priests within you to step forward around the committee table inside your head with all the different roles and all the different parts that we play. Just kind of finding the priest. The priest is the one who can bless. We're going to practice this because aside from blessing each other, we're going to convey blessings to all others. And we're going to convey blessing to our world. A blessing of awakening. A blessing of remembering. So please rise as you are able. And just imagine that you actually have been selected from among all people who are in this sanctuary today to convey blessing. And the universe needs the blessings. Each and every person here needs the blessing. And you never know, you might have exactly the blessing that can allow others in this space to receive. Remembering that each and every one is holy. This one, this one, this one. The easiest thing in the world is to bless. So it goes like this, the melody. And just for a moment, imagine someone or someone's in your life, in your world, that you would like to bless. That you would just like to bless them to support their awakening to the sacred essence of their being. That you would like them to know, Yasem Lecha Shalom, that they might know wholeness and completeness and peace. And just call to mind their names, their images. And imagine them standing before you. You know they might be already on another plane of being, wherever and whenever. And if you feel comfortable, let the priest do the priestly blessing through the hands. And I'd like to invite all the men to come forward into this open space in front of the room. Probably don't want to be there. Look, it might be that the source of all violence and the source of all discord comes from our inability to accept ourselves, comes from our inability to love ourselves. And so we try to fix things out there. But if that's a core source, the next most pervasive in our culture, still reflecting the patriarchal nature of power, of manipulation, is the terrible imbalance between men and women. It's like on a mythic level, we are equal parts of a single being, separated so that we could find each other, meet each other, embrace each other, realize the oneness together. But the struggle for power, created a very different context. And if we could heal this, our world would change. So I'm going to invite the women to bless the men. I don't know if we all deserve it. No, I mean that to say that whether consciously or unconsciously, we have contributed to the imbalance. And there still is imbalance. Whether consciously or unconsciously, we find it difficult to open ourselves fully and freely to you. And you have the unique possibility to love us anyways. And in that love and in that blessing, to call forth the wholeness that we need and that you need. So I'd ask you to kind of look at us. And if you feel comfortable, raise your hands. And know that in fact, you are empowered to bless. And it makes a difference. I just ask us men to let that flow through every cell and every level. Dare to accept the blessing from the women. The Hebrew response is Ken Yehi Ratzon. It means, may it be the will of the eternal. Ken Yehi Ratzon, say it with me. Ken Yehi Ratzon. Okay, we're going to change so that the men are going to occupy the front. You could just sit in some of the front rows because the women are about to come up front. But those who are in front of the thing that's going to hurt your eyes, you're in front of the projector. And I'd just like to ask the men, look at this, a ray of beauty. Each and every one, Kodesh Ladonai, each and every one holy, sacred. Each and every one exactly as they're supposed to be, right now, right here. It's so easy knowing that, to open our hearts and to allow the source of blessing to just flow through our hearts and our hands, our breath, to confirm the very highest, the essential truth of each and every woman in front of us. And I'd ask the women just to breathe that in, And to know you've been seen and you're loved and you're blessed. You are exactly as you're supposed to be. Now the men can come a little bit closer here, because we're going to be one community. And since we're all going to be doing the blessing, and if you don't know it by heart, come down here so you can turn that way. Because it's a gift to be able to bless each other. It's actually a responsibility to bless each other. And it's a responsibility to add blessing to our world. It's a responsibility to add blessing to our world. And the deepest blessing will always unfold as peace. Always unfold as the recognition of our essential wholeness. Because from our wholeness, true peace always naturally walks into our world. So we want to add a blessing to this space so that it can live in the walls and it can live in the ceiling. So it's a gift from us to this precious community that opens its space for us. This is the 8th year that we've done the High Holy Days in this space. Not yet. Wait. Stop. Not yet. We're not done. I'd like to invite all of us to bless our musicians. You know, so you can't do, I'd like you to stand with them. We can do this. Just look at that. Beautiful, precious beings. Thank you for sharing your music, your beings. lots of earth, to love the trees, to love the plants, to love the waters. Oh, we owe them our lives. We owe them our lives. I have to get the boopy. Thank you. The conclusion takes the last words of the blessing, V'yasem lecha shalom, v'yasem shalom. We are now the light of peace, we're the light of peace. And this kind of is the chatima, the seal of the Birkat Kohanim, the seal of the priestly blessing. The last line of a blessing sums up the essence of the blessing. And this goes like this.
I just have to say one thing before I do that. To hear those words, the melody that I wrote, coming back to me. Thank you.
Mm.
God bless.
The truth is your music has blessed people all over the world. Some of the melodies that have come out of our work together are sung all over and deserve to be. Sem lecha shalom,
V'yasem shalom, v'yasem lecha shalom, v'yasem shalom, v'yasem lecha shalom, v'yasem shalom, v'yasem lecha shalom, v'yasem shalom, v'yasem lecha shalom, v'yasem lecha shalom. We are now the light of peace. We are light of peace. We are now the light of peace. We're the light of peace. We are now the light of peace. We're the light of peace. We are now the light of peace. We're the light of peace. We are now the light of peace. We are now the light of peace. V'yasem lecha shalom, v'yasem shalom, v'yasem lecha shalom, v'yasem shalom, v'yasem lecha shalom, v'yasem shalom, v'yasem lecha shalom, v'yasem shalom.
And we're going to conclude the morning worship with, I open my heart to this moment. We will be reconvening. The healing meditation is at 2:30, and the afternoon worship will begin at 4:30. And that'll lead into the conclusion. We anticipate concluding by 6:30. For those people who are going to be eating, please eat in the, I don't know whether it's called Friendship Hall or Fellowship Hall, but it's that place. A lot of times we used to do a walk during the breaks on Yom Kippur, but there's actually no walking place here that is safe. So sometimes we wander in the parking lot. 64 laps of the parking lot is a mile. I just made that up. I'm just glad to be here with you. Exactly the right people are here. It's a beautiful day.
I open my heart to this moment. I open my heart to this time. I open my heart to this moment. I open my heart to this time. I am here to learn, and I am here to teach. I am always here. I am here to love, and I am here for good. Inani, I am here. I open my heart to this moment. I open my heart to this time. I open my heart to this moment. I open my heart to this time. I am here to learn, and I am here to teach. I am always here. I am here to love, and I am here for good. Inani, I am here. Inani, open my heart. Inani, I am here. Inani, I am here.
And just make contact with the people who are next to you, please. Blessings are conveyed through words, and blessings are conveyed through touching. Blessings are conveyed through seeing. Blessings are just conveyed through being. Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is a day for taking off our masks, so that the natural urge to bless shines forth. Just the natural urge to love expresses itself. The natural urge to remember what this is all about shines forth. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being. Thank you for. Thank you. The greeting, for Yom Kippur, you still can say Shana Tova or L'Shana Tova for a good year or a good year. The specific greeting is Gemar Chatima Tova, a good sealing, completion, or just Gemar Tov, a good ending. For those of you who are staying for the day, you're so lucky. No, really, we're just lucky to be able to hang for a day and just let ourselves open and open and open and open. And make use of the special invitation of Yom Kippur, to be aware of all those moments when we forget to open. When old habits and old patterns suddenly assert themselves and we go, oh. And we just embrace ourselves. It's okay to be human. It's okay to be me. Bless you, folks.
I open my heart to this time.